You know, sometimes people accuse me of making like easy content segments. You know what I mean? Like I just react to something, and I guess that's my job. But hey, listen, today, this is a field day for the rest of you, okay? Because we are about to engage in the most disproportionate level of content to commentary ever, all right? We are going beyond, we are piercing the veil, okay? At this point, we might as well be commenting on like a single sentence, you know? In fact, I think that's kind of what we're about to do. We're about to look at Tucker Carlson, okay? Look at him. Look at his, whoa, chill. Look at his friendly smile. Look at this guy. Look at this dude, you know? Pretty much the most popular political commentator in America. This is a 5.4-second cut from a broader conversation. And if you want, you can watch the whole thing. I don't really care. I just want to show you this opening. Watch closely.
Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did. Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did. Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did. Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the...
This is not a W mouth sound.
Worst thing this country ever did. Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
So, it would be pretty cheap of me to come here and say, like, haha, he had a slip up that made him sound racist. What a difficulty for Tucker Carlson. And to make fun of him for that. But I actually don't think this is a slip up. See, Tucker Carlson is a very experienced broadcaster, and he works off a teleprompter. That means that somewhere in front of him, probably about 20 or 30 feet away, there's a big screen with a transparent display of the content of his broadcast that, scrolls in pace with the rate at which he speaks. And that he would, in this instance, make the B, the mouth shape, hold it for a second, and then move to worst. I don't think that this is a mistake that one can make while reading a teleprompter unless one was thinking best. So what am I saying here? That this was some mask off moment and he meant to say best? Well, no, actually. I think this was very deliberate. Again, he's an experienced broadcaster. You really think that a guy who very rarely misspeaks, by the way, with a teleprompter, would for a second hold on like a Freudian slip? I don't think so. You can call it a reach if you want. I think this is bait. I think that the audience members he has that are pro-segregation, of which I doubt there's, some small amount, it's probably a decent number of them, were meant to see that, and were meant to go, yeah, he knows. Bosh, come on, this is conspiracy. Again, if it was a regular person talking, like a content creator, I might actually believe that. But look at him. This guy's been doing this job for longer than I have been alive. He reads scripts beforehand and has a teleprompter to guide his statements. Look at how long he holds on the beginning of a misspeak. Not just any misspeak, but a misspeak on the only other word he could have conceivably said after.
Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
That is an incredibly auspicious hold on what could have been a misspeak. This is a dog whistle. And it, by the way, is it really a surprise that Tucker Carlson would be dog whistling? His lead writer for years. I don't think you know what auspicious means. Did I miss you? Auspicious? Favorable? I thought auspicious meant obvious. Oh God, I've been misusing that for like years, and in my D&D campaigns too. Auspicious, like, oh wow, I had no idea. None of you corrected me on that. This is not the first time I have used that word publicly. I think you mean conspicuous. Yo, I know conspicuous. I know that word. I just thought auspicious also meant. Okay, well, thank you for correcting me. Wish you guys would have done it the past 40,000 times I've said that, but okay. Let's watch it one more time to take attention away from my misunderstanding.
Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
It's very emphasized. The way he bobs his head with the syllable.
He agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
He bobs his head with the syllable, with the worst, too. Now, there are, of course, some people who will say, okay, so it's an incredibly weird slip up and it looks really bad. Maybe it's a mistake, blah, blah. Is it really that surprising? Like, conceptually, do you really think it would have been that surprising for Tucker Carlson to have just said best? Imagine that we're in a mask-off universe. Do you really think that's a position that he wouldn't hold? It was just a couple weeks ago that he was saying the greatest threat to American democracy in its history was the Hart-Celler Act, aka the Immigration Act that led to more non-white people coming into this country. He's been doing segments like that for a while, too. These are arguments effectively on the same scale as, like, Nick Fuentes. In fact, the first debate between Destiny and Nick Fuentes was on that exact subject. He's been openly talking about, for years now, the fact that fundamentally, underneath all its problems, diversity, the existence of non-white people, is the greatest threat to America that presently exists. He's talked about how the presence of non-white people is being done as part of a Democrat conspiracy to further their anti-white agenda, which is, by the way, the Great Replacement theory. You know, the Christchurch shooter? That's just the Great Replacement theory. He just didn't say replacing white people. He said replacing conservative Americans who vote Republican, who are majority white, and the people who are replacing them are non-white. So the brown people replacing white people narrative is kind of baked inherently into the dog whistles he chose to use. The Republican Party has been leaning on this harder and harder in recent times. I think that we experimented, by we, I guess I mean America, we experimented with covert racism. You know, you all remember the Nixon interview, the Southern strategy. What's the thing that guy said? Hold on. Let's get the full quote, huh? Of which I will not be reading every word, by the way. Strategy Nixon interview. Give me the Lee Atwater. That's it. I always forget. Give me the give me that quote. Here it is. Everyone cites this. You start out in 1954 by saying N-word, N-word, N-word. He didn't say N-word, by the way. That's not the word that he said in the interview. By 1968, you can't say N-word anymore. Same. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff, and you're getting so abstract. Now you're talking about cutting taxes, and all these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. We want to cut this as much more abstract than even the busing thing, and it's a hell of a lot more abstract than N-word, N-word. And I think, I mean, the reason why that quote gets circulated so often is because I think that it lays bare how aware Republicans are of the strategy that they've been using for the past 50 or so years, you know? When they talk about forced busing or when they talk about segregation, taxes, welfare queens, et cetera, they just hate black people. It's just, the Republican Party has been the party of white supremacy for half a century now. And when people vote for the Republican Party, it's not because they have some abstract allegiance to a set of economic principles that change frequently, are ill-defined, and barely even get, actually passed. What they really care about are a series of policies that favor white people, fundamentally. That's what the Republican Party puts its efforts into first and foremost. That's the reason why when Trump talked about the working class, he talked about white Rust Belt types up in the north rather than, well, the majority of the working class is POC in this country, so it's a very notable and auspicious oh, I did it again. Sorry. I guess it was auspicious in the sense that it favored his career, wasn't it? Well, a very notable decision to avoid mentioning POC, working class types. And let's not forget, what did everyone vote for in 2016? It was the wall and the Muslim ban. And then, when Black Lives Matter really ramped up and grew to be more popular, what did Trump say in his speeches? We're going to keep Black Lives Matter from invading our suburbs. This is a very, very lazy dog whistle. Seriously? Especially since just a little while ago, Trump cited some statistics, some number of suburban women who like him. It was white women. He was referring to a statistic that measured people's race. He just said suburban instead of white. And then later, when he talked about keeping Black Lives Matter from invading the suburbs, he again said suburb instead of white. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you that Black Lives Matter as an organization is kind of inherently racialized. Black Lives Matter. You get it? Anyway, the reason why I'm saying all of this, and I don't think any of this is like really a surprise to most of you, is because there are people who are watching right now who are probably of the opinion that the idea of Tucker Carlson saying is something, or signaling something, as obvious and as stupidly racist as segregation is the best thing we've ever done for our country is ridiculous. When I'm terribly sorry, and I need to remind you, it's really not. The Republican Party's been saying it for decades. They've just changed up the language. And I think now they've sort of moved past the need for subtlety. Now that we're in like this whole QAnon white nationalist era, I think they can just be a little bit more open. Not too open. He didn't actually say best. I doubt he'll ever say best. Though it wouldn't surprise me if in the near future, Tucker Carlson will talk about issues such as cultural homogeneity and how the black community was better off before the Civil Rights Act, and how there used to be a set of shared identities in America where people knew their neighbors. And, well, actually, he's already talked about some of these things, hasn't he? Like I've said, it shouldn't be a surprise. Maybe one day he'll just say best, but until then, this is what we get. Oh, one last thing, by the way. I don't know if Tucker Carlson himself actually believes anything that he says. He's a hollow puppet. There's plenty of evidence from behind the scenes to indicate that he'll say or do anything his billionaire overlords tell him to do. His billionaire overlords tend to be racist. I don't know. Maybe internally Tucker Carlson is like a super woke BLM type dude. It wouldn't really matter that much because he clearly has no integrity, and there doesn't seem to be a relationship between what he'll say and what he believes. So it doesn't really matter. I don't know if Tucker Carlson's racist. I know he says racist stuff, but yeah. One last time for the... There's been more Fox News segments of them talking about legal immigration being a troubling thing that is changing the demographics of the country. Yeah, of course. Because illegal immigration was only ever something Fox News cared about because it was brown people coming in. But the dog whistles are starting to fade away. It was never the illegality that was the problem. It was their race. And I am begging, I am genuinely begging, any conservatives who watch me or any conservatives in general who just happen to hear these arguments of mine, if you aren't a racist, I mean, if you genuinely, truly are not, and if you do believe in just economic austerity and nationalism and blah, 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 I beg of you, please look into the behavior of the conservatives in this country. It is far more easily described by racism than it is by anything else. All of their economic, social, civic, and political and foreign priorities are inconsistent unless viewed through the lens of disadvantaging non-white people. That's it. That's the consistent line right there. Pretty much everything they do, say, and believe follows through on that. And the fact that they have a bunch of black speakers at the RNC really doesn't change that. If anything, it supports their goal of white supremacy. The more they appear to be white supremacists, the harder it is for people to take them seriously. So, gullible people are led along by dog whistles like the ones Tucker Carlson throws out, or by the fact that they center and prominently feature black Republican voices at many of their conventions to give you the sense that, yeah, the libs aren't right. Yeah, the libs are lying. Would a racist party really have this many blacks at its events? Well, I'm sorry to say, yes.
Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
And if they could get away with it, they'd be segregating the seats in those conventions, too.